Hello and welcome to this week's roundup of Tinto Talks, where I talk all about what Tinto Talks has been talking about. And of course, before we get into the meat and potatoes of all of the discussions and responses, I gotta remind you that if you would like to keep up to date and informed about everything coming out of Paradox Tinto with Project Caesar, then the best thing to do would be to hit that subscribe button. It helps you out because you stay informed, and it helps me out because I get a sub, and then it is a win-win. So, with that kind of tedious monotonousness out of the way, let us get into the Tinto Talks, and as always, we start off with the Saturday building that came out yesterday. This is an settlement which provides a bit of migration attraction and population growth in a rural location. However, if the population of that rural location grows large enough, that building will in fact be removed. Whether that means it will be deleted completely and all of the construction you put into it goes basically away, or whether it gets disabled and then you can re-enable it if the population grows small enough again, or maybe the development of the location goes up so that you can, re-enable it and then it's not big enough anymore, is unknown, unfortunately. But also, I just want to bring up a topic that I brought up when I posted this on my community tab and on Twitter, that there is no gold cost here. There is no price in ducats for building buildings, which makes me think of a couple of things. Either we're going to get into a situation with Project Caesar where buildings don't actually cost you money to build. They merely cost you, the goods required to build them. And potentially that could be a very interesting system, because while on the surface that means, oh wow, if I've got like a ton of masonry and lumber and all the other goods potentially that are needed for buildings, I can just spam these out. But the buildings also have requirements, right? These required production methods of stone and lumber and wild game, and I believe cotton. I believe. I'm not sure. So if you are going to just spam out all of these buildings, you might end up into horrific problems when it comes to supplying the buildings with the goods that they need to function. So that might be the balancing act there. Alternatively, there could be a gold cost that we just have not seen yet. That's also perfectly possible. But I think either way could probably work and be fun. So I'd like to know what you guys think, and if you are in agreement with me that maybe there is no gold cost and it is purely down to the goods that you spend on building it. And of course, purchasing these materials via the market is going to cost gold in a way. So maybe that is how it happens. But let me know what you guys think. Anyway, there was also a comment by Johan on this here as well. He looked at Tinto Talk 16 and he saw the cabinet action, and let's just open that up just a moment. The expel people action. And it was supposed to micromanage the peasants of their cabinet if their migration is not allowed by default laws. But basically, yeah, if you want to keep the serfs, then yes, you will micromanage it. And Ryaski here said he was not really a fan of this icon being used for the settlement, because this is a rural area. The settlement's maybe not supposed to be such a grand-looking manor house. It's got stairs up to the door after all. But it is currently just a generic placeholder icon right now, and it'll be seen a lot until filling out the content. But he gave some references which are basically, decent references. So those may be used for a future icon. Anyway, moving on to, of course, the Tinto maps of the Ottoman Empire. Not the Ottoman Empire. That's a future thing. There would be the Ottoman Empire in the future if history follows. But it's not there right now. So it's just Anatolia. How many Kurdish cultures are there in the game? There is one. Is it maybe make it so that few people can be shown on the religious map, but will it be possible to make a revival of certain ancient religions like the Hellenic pantheon in Rome and Greece, or the Egyptian pantheon in Egypt? Unlikely, very unlikely. The aim is to have the religions present in 1337. This kind of fantastical nature of reviving completely dead religions, it's kind of fun, but maybe leave that to mods, potentially. What's the current political setup of Anatolia and Project Caesar? Did the Ottomans start at war with the Romans, or is everyone at peace at the start? They're currently at peace, but they may review this. So just like in Poland and Bohemia and Lithuania are at war with the Teutons and the Livonians, they currently started war at the start of the game. Maybe this is also going to be the case for Anatolians. Are the Menetids the Byzantine vassals? If not, they need a color change, CB. So, Menetids here, they are slightly off-colored from the Romans, and therefore it's a question of, are these guys vassals? And I feel like the same could be true up here. Are these guys the Aretinids vassals? I actually didn't see anyone ask about this, so maybe that is the case. And the colors of Charicids, Sarhanids, Aidenids, and Germanids are maybe a little bit too close as well, and the Ananicids. Maybe these are all a little bit too close, so they could all be up for a change as well. But the Menetids are independent, so maybe they need another color, so maybe we'll end up seeing that. Will the Yazidi religion for the Kurds be implemented as a significant minority, if not majority, in some areas, since they are not part of the Sunni, Christian, or even Zoroastrian countries? So they would like to have the Yazidi religion represented, though it's not implemented in the game just yet. Don't suppose it can be changed back into saffron, talking about basically spices existing. Individual spices will be way better, in my opinion. Apparently, it was causing undesired issues, as Yona stated, so most probably not. I think that there should be at least a split in half of spices. Spices that were native to, Europe and were available in Europe in 1337, and spices that could only be found by going and doing a little bit of colonizing. I think that would be a really good way of differentiating the two. Basically, you could call it European spices. You could have North American spices like chilies, I think, and peppers are from North America. And then you could have Asian spices. And that, I think, would solve the issue. Because, sure, if they all just get converted into spices on the end product, that's one thing, but like the estates really should be wanting, the exotic spices a lot. I'm thinking of like the burghers especially and the nobles would want these exotic spices and would like demand them, because that's kind of what happened historically. So I would like to see a split in the spices, but I haven't seen. Maybe they've done that in testing. They've found that that's not viable. So maybe that's what's happening. Do you have a win rate in your mind for the Roman-Ottoman rivalry, or even the Anatolian Thunderdome as a whole? In how many games with no player involvement do you want/expect the Romans to win? How many the Ottomans, or how many some other Beylik? They currently don't have anything of that sort yet. It's a bit early in development. The aim is that the Ottomans are usually the regional winners and kill the Romans, but we don't have a set outcome percentage at the moment. It'd be interesting to see later on if this is obviously updated and changed, and Paradox does have a desired win ratio for the various parties, because while I like I said in Friday's video, I love the fact that there are so many tags in Anatolia that look to be fun and playable instead of one. I think when I'm not playing in Anatolia, I don't know really if I would... I don't really know what outcome I would prefer to see more often. Romans surviving would, of course, be quite delightful, but the historical outcome of the Ottomans becoming, hegemonic is also something that I don't think should never happen, you know? I don't know what percentage I'm looking for, but I think I think the worst option would probably be a stalemate where nobody wins, or I think having the Romans and the Ottomans stare across the straits at each other for a century is fine, but I would like Anatolia proper to be somewhat unified within like 150, 200 years. Would be my preference, let's say. Who will be the most powerful nation at the start of the game? It's Yuan by a good long way. Of course, we have the situation, the Yellow Turban Rebellion situation that may bring them down a peg or five. But yeah, at the start of the game, Yuan is by far the strongest power in the world, and I think probably followed up by the Golden Horde. Saying that the Ottomans would be up there is very funny, and you haven't looked at any of the maps shown, but yeah, moving on. Can the Ottomans restore the Roman Empire? Why would they be able to? Yeah, it makes no. I know, you know, Kaiseri Rum and all that, but that is more a case of a title given to the Sultan, calling the emperor over the Romans, not the Roman Empire as a title of their country. It's a very different thing. Well, the Ottomans did claim to be the Roman Empire. No, they didn't, so it would kind of make sense if they could. It's a different thing claiming to be successor to Rome than restoring the Roman Empire as a polity with a certain set of institutions, religions, etc., at least in my eyes. Absolutely based Pavia. Based Pavia. No, I think it's very clear that the Roman Empire died in 1453. You can be generous and say, is it 61 for Trebizond? But yeah, the Roman Empire died in 1453, and you know, this is not the Chronicles of Riddick. You cannot just claim what you kill. That's not happening. If you can claim to be the emperor over the Romans, which is technically true because, you know, Mehmet was then the emperor over the area where the Romans lived. So he was the emperor over the Romans, clearly. Yeah, having them be recognized as the Roman Empire is not really something I'm in favor of. Because the Rum Sultanate, the Rum Sultanate, or Sultanate of Rum, is different from the Roman Empire, and restoring it will be doable for the Turkish Beyliks. Makes sense. I wonder if this includes the Ottoman Beylik, because, of course, they couldn't do that in EU4, because I guess they were already a bit hegemonic and beyond such things. It was possible for Karaman and Kandar, although I don't think anyone ever did it with Kandar, let's be honest. Will Islam have various international organizations representing the different schools of jurisprudence? There will be Muslim schools of jurisprudence, and we also want to portray Sufism and most likely Alavism. I've heard of Sufism, I've never heard of Alavism, but yeah, I guess somebody in the comments can inform me as to what those are. Do the Ottomans, or the Beylik, have Ottoman open succession laws? Since you have characters, it should be an easy thing to implement. It would mean that whilst the player would have some sort of influence over who inherits, you know, a bit of randomness, because characters cause characters to be delayed and inherit differently. Plans for the Turkish Beyliks to have different succession law? Yes, fair enough. Any kind of international organization situation in the region? Yes. Well, what is it? Well, it's called The Rise of the Turks. We also considered the Turkish Thunderdome, but wanted the flavour of the game to be historically immersive. That's a good thing to see, seeing more situations being named and such. I would very much like to know more about The Rise of the Turks and how that international... Sorry, I think it's a situation, not an international organisation. I hope that does get explained in the future, because that sounds pretty interesting. Any chance you guys are planning on splitting the Apostolic and Coptic churches? Yes, he means the Armenian Apostolic Church. If that's the case, even though they are both considered part of the Miaphysite religion, so they share mechanics, they are already split as being part of different patriarchates, which are international organizations. This is a really cool way of treating religions that are, you know, very similar. So they're under the same umbrella religion, but then having them be part of different IOs is like... That's a really cool way of of doing things. Like this international organization system, like I said before, it seems like so amazingly powerful. You can do so much with it. It's nice to see it being used here as well. The Romans have over 1.5 times the population of the Ottomans. Is anything stopping every Roman player from stomping the Ottomans at the game start? Check what happened to Byzantium a few years after 1337. They had a civil war, so I guess that's somewhat scripted to be inevitable in Project Caesar, potentially. Also, the Ottomans had a royal marriage with, if I remember correctly, the Germaniads. And basically that would put them onto roughly the same level of population. So, I mean, that's a thing. Maybe we can drag this over here. Hang on, where were we? I've lost my places. Here. If we look at the populations, if we have a look here, Germaniads, this one, I'm pretty sure this was the royal marriage that went on. But if you add these populations together, that's what, 1.1 something million, and there's 1.2 million for the Romans. So, yeah, you basically get the identical population just as soon as you do this single royal marriage. Once we finish with feedback of all of Europe, will we get a high-resolution map of Europe as a reward? That might be a good idea. Looking forward to that. There is a guy on Reddit that keeps stitching these maps together really, really nicely, and I've put them on my community tab if you want to go and have a look at that. But yeah, getting a full one would be very, very cool indeed. How will the coastal Beyliks manage their army and manpower if most of their population is Greek Orthodox rather than Turkish Muslims? With an interesting starting handicap. Yeah, fair enough. Some suggestions about Kurdish principalities to the east. This time they're likely vassals to the Sutayids. They can only say, I mean, obviously it's a huge, it's a nice suggestion, but basically they can say they have plans for the white and black sheep to appear. So Ak and Kara Kayunlu will appear in the game, whether that's a situation, whether that is a scripted rebellion for the Jalairids, we don't know yet, but look forward to seeing the white and black sheep back. Are we going to make mechanics for Constantinople for it to be the hardest city possible to conquer and possibly for the attackers to give up because of how strong the Theodosian walls were? They have the Theodosian walls. This is obviously going to be one of the unique buildings that we've heard of. What this unique building does, we of course don't know yet. Massive defensiveness, I would imagine. And we also don't know how sieges are going to work in the game, so maybe it's going to be possible for walled city to simply become unsiegeable unless you have enough of a technological advancement over your enemies, in the form of a bunch of cannons. I suppose it's not an advance over your enemies, but more just if you have enough technology to take down the walls, then you can siege it if you like. But moving on, of course, to the Wednesday thread, we of course have this as the artwork at the start, right? And I just want to go over a couple of things that I said in my previous video. Firstly, I had assumed that this was AI art. I'd seen rumors that Paradox using AI art. Of course, it's not really a rumor, as in CK3, it was very prevalent on the Persia DLC. The AI art looked very prevalent there, and here I was looking at the hands, and I thought to myself, okay, this is maybe the first time where I'm seeing AI art as a thing. And of course that was at the start of my video. Before, I think my video was maybe like 20 minutes long. Before 20 minutes had passed from uploading my video, I got a message on Discord from Johan saying that they do not use AI art at all. So there's nothing here that is AI art. This is all drawn by people. And I believe him. I have no reason to distrust him. And I guess I just gotta apologize, I guess, to the artist who drew this. I'm sorry. I am not an artist. I don't know what goes into creating artwork at all. So I apologize for that. And there was also not only from myself, but there were others calling it, AI art. So there was a post, a response, and here it is. The topic of generative AI has come up a few times, so I think it's worth addressing. As with any tech company, we try to be at the forefront of technology as it comes. Everyone in tech is encouraged to use tools to boost their efficiency where possible, whether it's through software or technique. When it comes to illustration, we also use every tool available to us, from reference image libraries, new software features, and yes, newfangled generative AI. But the goal is that none of this is ever visible to the player, whether it's the latest Photoshop plugins, 3D Blender bases, or AI. They're just part of the process to speed illustrators up. The speed is the best way to meet player expectations of a varied game with lots of visual content and variety. Furthermore, I can say with certainty that many of the illustrations shown have not actually had AI used at any point in the process, and neither are all the elements highlighted as AI actually AI. To be blunt, so far the community's detection of AI has been quite inaccurate. Most things that are suspected as AI are certainly not, and some things which indeed have an AI base are not picked up on by the community at all. This heightened alertedness to AI is understandable, though, with the times we are going through. With the illustrations that we intend to show small on the UI, for example, every image shown so far in Tinto Talks, there are inevitable shortcuts to be taken on inconsequential details that won't be discerned at a small size due to time restrictions. These shortcuts will be taken whether we have AI available to use or not, as they're visible at the size they are shown in-game. And we have another category, that is simple mistakes made by the artists and me as their lead, since Dave UK is the art lead. Critically, none of the images shown in Tinto Talks have been designed to be zoomed in on and have tiny details circled. Those details and mistakes would never actually be visible in the end product when they are scaled to the proper size, about 25% of screen width. An actual player experience in-game is our paramount driving force behind the art we make. We share with you the images from the game, which, like the rest of the game, are in various stages of development, which our artists feel most match the theme of the talk. We don't choose only those that we hold up to top quality full-screen marketing material, because that's not what Tinto talks about, and it'll never be. That said, we're taking your feedback on board, and we'll work a little more to make all the images meet the expectations, because that kind of dialogue is what Tinto Talks is about. So the things that I called out as AI was not AI, but there might be in other places, and we just have not managed to see it or spot it because it's inconsequential. I have used AI images in thumbnails before. I'm not against AI as on a what's called level, on a not religious level, on a morality based level. Like, I'm not against its use. And yeah, maybe I shouldn't have just pointed out, oh, this is where the AI has been blah 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 visible. It was a mistake for me, so I apologize, and I apologize for misleading people. There's a little bit more on the topic of AI here. They have very strict rules for the ethical use of AI developed by the legal department. The list of approved services doesn't even need a scroll bar. It's probably, like, not what's called Mid-Journey. Probably not that one. Ethicists and legalists are generally in agreement when the question is, can a company use someone else's artwork without asking them? Very, very fair. Very true. But yeah, that's all I have to say about the art issue. Moving on to the actual Tinto Talks. Is there migration between countries, or is it only internal? They are able to migrate within an market. So yeah, you can go between countries. He loves the pop ledger. So do I. He can almost get all of the information there, which is making me think, of course, you can't get absolutely every bit of information there that you might want, but yeah, you can almost get all of it there. I like the pop ledger too. I think it is definitely a step up from what we've seen before, and I think, having Victoria 2 as its baseline is good, because I am in probably the minority that thinks Victoria 2's UI is actually kind of goated. I'm a big fan. Very interesting, but when you said that only peasants grow organically, what does that mean? Nobles do not have children, or are they immortal god emperors? They are abstracted away. They get replacement kids, 2 kids only for each couple. Basically, what we know is that the nobles are restricted in the amount that you can have in a certain location. So having them grow, and then what? Do they instantly demote, or do they migrate away, it just makes sense to have the unlimited group grow only, and then have those integrate or promote into others when necessary. You asked about Norse pops. We've got them, all 38 of them. Yeah, actually, I'm going to see if I can get onto the thingamabob again, because I would like to show off something that I had missed in the Tinto talk itself, is that there are 38 Norse pagans in Sweden. There will probably be slightly more in Norway, maybe Denmark, because mostly I think they were over in the likes of Greenland, and Greenland's colony in Finland will apparently also be a thing. So that's probably where we're going to see the revival of Norse pagan. It is technically possible because they exist. It's not a dead religion. But yeah, no, I'd missed this in the Tinto talk itself, so apologies for that. And yeah. There we go. Move on to the next one. You asked for the Norse pops. There it is. Beer, liquor, and wine. Yes, all of them are needed for a good life. This is another one where it's like, yes, that's great. But wait a minute. And the wait a minute for me is, I on a personal level, I don't like beer, I don't like liquor, and I really don't like wine either. My alcohol of choice is cider. And I think cider was a pretty big thing in this era. Especially in England, you know, lots of orchards and making cider from those orchards. And even more so than cider or beer, I think mead really should be a thing. Mead was one of the main drinks in at least Northern Europe. Maybe not quite as much as beer, but certainly more than liquor and certainly more than wine. I think maybe it deserves its place, potentially, maybe. But maybe it's, having 3 alcoholic drinks in your list of trade goods is potentially enough. Can one nation expel minorities or increase their emigration desire? And can another nation become a free haven and get increased migration attraction from the expelled pops? Yes, they can go within a market. Kind of like France expelling the Huguenots, I have no idea how to pronounce that, and the Dutch Republic accepting them. But yeah, they'll go inside the market, but there are other ways the pops will move in a country. This theme of there are other things that we did not talk about in the Dev Diary about migration that concerns migration. It's a theme, it will come up again. How will migration to the New World function? By one of the X other migration systems. Nice. Okay then. And they'll talk about colonization in August, which is, one of the Dev Diaries that I'm most looking forward to learning about, because I really didn't like colonization in EU4. So seeing how it will be improved upon in EU5 is going to be very interesting, of course. Will the construction of buildings be visible on the in time on the map like in Victoria 3? He says yes to this, but I don't understand, right? Because in EU4 you also could see buildings being constructed like on the map. You zoom in and you saw, the little crane thing moving around, and I don't remember exactly how it is in Vic 3, but like it was also there in E4, so I don't know. Who knows? Not me. I have no idea. Is the upper class pop limit per pop type, or is there a maximum number of upper class pops that the clergy, burghers, and nobility compete for? All burghers, nobility, and clergy are upper class. There's no max number for them to compete. And I'm going to bring out my my inner Thor, though my hair isn't quite as good. And we're gonna do a paint thing, because basically, say you have a single location. Hang on, need to do that. Say you have a single location. It has a maximum number of nobles, a maximum number of clergy, and a maximum number of burghers. These numbers are not shared together. They are completely separate numbers. So in your location, say you have, maximum number of nobles of, say, 100, basically, let's go with 100, 200, and 300. Completely random numbers. You will have these are probably way larger than in probably most places, but you'll have your, say, 20,000 peasants upgrade into the various nobility classes, and these guys aren't really competing with each other. These guys will promote just over time to fill out these slots. And if, say, you build a new building, say you build a market, then that will increase the amount of burghers to 400. And then there will just be more peasants promoting to this pop. They're not competing with each other, which I think is obviously a good thing. And there's, no max number for them to compete with because they each have their own number, which makes sense to me. Would it be possible to mod it so that some pops don't assimilate, or they assimilate to a different culture than the primary one? In theory, yes. Assimilation is usually to the primary culture, but yeah. But yeah, what? Usually what? Like, this is something that I'd mentioned in my video, that it would be a good idea, potentially, if pops would culture convert, or assimilate, I should say, into the majority population of a location. And I didn't like the idea that every, pops would only assimilate to the primary culture. But they don't, because it's only usually, and it's only, but yeah, like there is systems in place for it to not be just to the primary culture. Is this when you accept another culture, maybe they become, possible to assimilate to if they are the majority? Maybe something like that could work. Say in an Austria-Hungary scenario, if Austria accepts Hungarian, will the pops in like Transylvania start assimilating into Hungarian instead of Austrian? Maybe? Like, we have no idea. We have no idea whatsoever. Can we target specific pops for assimilation? For example, assimilate the nobles first so they happily oppress the local peasants for the crown. No, we can't. But it doesn't matter, because even if nobles, like, they will assimilate, and they will assimilate before peasants, because there are so far fewer of them. So, say in the scenario that I cooked up in my head, this 20,000 might be assimilating faster than these guys, but there's only 100 of these, and there's 20,000 of these. So these guys are going to assimilate before these guys. And I guess then they can start oppressing people. Who knows? Are there a planned mechanic for the deforestation in relation to the free land and population growth? Depending on map code technology, yes, but I'd love to have it. If you saw my video on whether there is going to be a new engine for EU5, this was basically my argument, that he's waiting on map code technology. So he's waiting for a different team to work on underlying, like, engine mechanics, because this is part of the engine, right? It's not possible to change the what's called the terrain of a province in EU4 because of the engine limitations. So map code technology, this is basically saying there is an engine in the works. Whether this is brand new engine, whether this is an upgrade to Gemini, or whether this is standard, every game gets an update to the engine when it comes out. So even though, Imperator, CK, and Vicky are all using the Gemini layer, they're all using it in a slightly different way, in a slightly differently upgraded way. So, what form this is going to take, who knows? Hopefully, though, we will be able to get, deforestation and changing of vegetation in the game. That would be kinda neat. Since the assimilation rate is linear, but population growth is exponential, this creates an organic situation where regional minorities generally don't get assimilated away, unless their provinces are severely depopulated by something that totally isn't your fault, which in case assimilation plus migration, so much free land, takes over. Very cool. That is, in fact, the idea. Yes, this is a nice description of it. Very happy to see having a written alphabet is mechanic. It's a basic technology that most have, but not all. Right. This one I want to talk about as well. Because This implies, in my opinion, that technology, of course, is very different from EU4. We're not going to get just a linear scale of technology. You know, we're now Tech 4, Tech 5, Tech 6 in 3 categories. This makes me think more of the Imperator Rome innovation system, where most countries have chosen at the start of the game to have the written alphabet innovation. Here they're called technologies, but technology definitely seems like it is a more tree-based system, I'll say, rather than a linear progression-y system. Is what I'm feeling here. But I guess we'll find out at some point in hopefully this year about how technology works. He also says here, obviously people in colder climates want more lumber or coal, while a Jane Pop is not wanting any fur at all. He says there, shots fired at Victoria 3, and I think it's very cute that Johan doesn't get this. I believe in Victoria 3, Janes still have, obviously, pop needs, and one of their pop needs is meat and fur and fish and everything, whereas Janes as a people don't kill animals at all, so they refuse all animal products, be it fur, meat, fish, etc. And yeah, so Victoria 3 doesn't model what Janes do, whereas the Project Caesar will. So that's shots fired. But Johan gives such a little amount of shits about what Victoria 3 is doing. It seems, I should say. They just doesn't get it, which is slightly funny. But anyway, do pops assimilate to your country's primary culture or the biggest accepted culture in the location, or can you choose? In most cases, it's primary culture. Again, with this, like, here, this is the assimilation mechanic, and here's how it works. In the comments, oh yeah, but what if it works differently? Oh, well, it can in some cases. Why didn't you tell us about those cases in the dev diary? That would have been nice. Oh. Is there a way to keep pops out of migrating out of the country? You can block some estates from migrating, but it's also primarily inside your market, which is also primarily inside your own country, unless you're playing in Germany, in which case I can imagine you wanting to boost the migration because it's all going to be your culture anyway, or roughly your culture anyway. And if you can boost migration, you have a large amount of countries within the same market as you all migrating to your territory. That would be pretty hype. Can you invite certain peoples for advances in technology and skilled craftsmen? While it's happened historically, you're a bit ambivalent about portraying culture X is better at Y than Z. I agree. I do not want to see CK3's culture mechanics, basically, where, I haven't played CK3 in such a long time, but I don't want to see it being, oh, you are English culture, therefore you are better at building boats. I don't want to see, oh, you are, Prussian culture, therefore you are, 5% more disciplined. Like, I don't want to see that. That doesn't really appeal to me. People are people at the end of the day, and an Englishman can be just as disciplined as a Prussian. And a Prussian can be just as good at building boats as an Englishman, depending on, of course, their upbringing, their situation, it's a case of what's that thing about babies? There's a thing about babies. Upbringing versus inherent traits. I don't know. There's a term for it, but I've forgotten it because, it's interesting, though, that this was so very much disliked. I imagine these are the CK fans who think cultures should have inherent advantages. I still think that national ideas should be a thing. I just don't want to see it for culture specifically. Yeah, anyway. How does goods substitution work? Do pops always get upset if they don't have certain goods, or will other goods appease them? There is no good substitution, as you can't think of an algorithm that's not going to get performance problems for it. I think that's fine. Like, oh no, I can't get meat, therefore I'll be happy with fish. But, that all has to be modeled in the game mechanics, and if game mechanics are going to cause unreasonable amounts of performance issues, for little gain, then it's fine to not have them. I know Victoria 3 has good substitution, but that game also runs like complete trash. So, yeah, maybe they didn't have this in mind when they were creating their good substitution system. Can you selectively approve of religions and cultures so they aren't assimilated? Yes, on cultures. Fair enough. In a location with a base trade good that isn't food, will you need to import all the food needed to sustain the pop, or ship it from other locations in the same province? So yeah, food looks like it is provincial level, which is good. Will accepting cultures and the general mechanic work like Imperator? No, it will not, but it's not like EU4 either. Well, in Imperator, it would be impossible to have it like that system. Because in Imperator, you had all of the pop types completely stratified. You know, the nobles were ahead of the citizens, were ahead of the freemen, were ahead of the, I think, tribesmen, and then slaves. Right? They were stratified in that way. In Project Caesar, they're not. It's nobles, clergy, and burghers are on the same level, and then peasants, tribesmen, and slaves are on the same level. So I suppose you could have it where you accepted, you elevated the nobles or the clergy or the burghers into accepted status, and then that would make, that culture accepted. But really, I don't see that happening. So accepting cultures are a new mechanic, completely new. And I'm glad that it's not like EU4, because accepted cultures in EU4 is kind of terrible. Can I just ignore it and will it sort itself out in the background, talking about all the pop migration and assimilation and such? Or do I have to put up with the Vic vibes in not EU5? For the most, it's mostly in the background. So it's something that you can fiddle with if you want to, but it will happen in the background if you don't. And the same thing with economy and markets and trading. That will all happen in the background if you want it to. Do peasants ever migrate illegally? What, breaking the law? You have to remember, Johan is Swedish. And as we all know by now, in Sweden it is forbidden by law to be a criminal. Therefore, clearly, no. Clearly, no. I'm curious, what is the reason for only having natural growth for peasants and tribesmen? It makes it easier on performance, other logics, rather than calculating every month that 20 nobles might get another noble. I am in favor of this. I think it is a good idea to have it so that only the peasants and tribesmen are growing. Because in that case, what you have in every location is a single pop type that will be upgrading over time, creating more and more. If you had nobles also potentially upgrading, you have, say, a pool of 100 nobles and, say, 10,000 peasants in a single location, and the game would have to be like, okay, it's peasants' turn, it's peasants' turn, and it's peasants' turn, this is for growth. Peasants' turn to grow, peasants' turn for grow, peasants' turn to grow. Oh, now it's a noble's turn to grow, and now it's back to peasants' turn to grow. It's much easier to have peasants be the only one that's growing, and then those peasants would maybe ahistorically, but certainly better for game performance, certainly better for gameplay. A noble will promote out of a peasant, and that's fine. It works. It works in my head, and it might not be the most historically accurate thing you've ever heard of, but it works, and I think it's fine. How is that ahistorical? Where do you think nobles came from? Somebody basically saying that it's ahistorical that peasants turn to nobles. At least in the German-speaking areas, there were lots of serfs that were raised up to the rank of noble while still being unfree, i.e. in the ministries. A noble is just a peasant with a sword that others acknowledge as legal. Again, people are people. There is no inherent goodness quality to a nobleman's blood. It is purely a person who has been elevated legally, and that is fine. Are the UI and ledger colors customizable? Yes, they are fully moddable. It's not something I was pointing out, but as it's there, I'll just talk about it. That's good. I like moddable stuff. Is there no way to assimilate minority cultures into the accepted culture of the area or region rather than the country's primary culture? What if I want to assimilate Highlanders into Scots culture rather than English? I can't do that. Again, This is the migration system. But what about this? Oh yeah, that also happens. There are different ways to achieve that. That should have been in the dev diary then. How likely will we ever see a dev clash in this very secret game? Greater than 0. I would love for there to be a dev clash. I so much enjoyed the EU4 dev clashes back in the day. I want to see them again, and I would, you know, Jake has left Paradox, so if you're looking for a caster, I've done casting before, and I would be more than happy, and it would be my pleasure if you want some casters for that. I put my name in the ring. That would be nice. I'd be down for that. My YouTube channel is my resume, I guess. I've done plenty of casting there. But no, that I would be so happy to see a dev clash, because they were also really good places to learn about mechanics before the game came out. They really worked very well to demonstrate mechanics in action. More so than, you know, two people sitting in a room playing, one of them playing and the other one asking them questions. That didn't work quite so well for me as you know, the dev clashes. So I'd love to see this. If the nobles are killed off in battle, are they just replaced by promoting peasants? Yes, over time, which again is fine for me. Again, though, well, I say again, but there was a bit of controversy about, oh, why would you call them tribesmen? Isn't that horrific amounts of Eurocentrism and blah blah blah, and you know, basically thinking that it was some inherent, you know, way of being evil. As a side note on the Tribesmen pop concept and why we chose it, the design vision for them is more or less what they've been stated. People with a parallel social organization, which is not exactly the same as that of the majority of the country. In game terms, it means they can't work on RGOs and buildings, etc. While we discussed internally what would be the best possible term for them, and we obviously took a look at the trends of social anthropology research, we decided to go for Tribesmen for the pop and Tribes for the estate, as they're still useful anthropological concepts. However, obviously need to be used with caution, as the state of the art is not the same today as it was in the 1950s and 60s. A good starting point to know more about the controversy is the Wikipedia page, as usual. Bear in mind his link to a Wikipedia page, but he's also talking about social anthropology research, because they're doing more than just looking at a Wikipedia page. Precisely because of that, we try to be careful on how they're described as a game concept. So, the description. These represent communities that populate rural locations, subsisting on their own as farmers, shepherds, or hunter-gatherers, and that we can hardly govern, since they maintain their own differentiated social structures and organization. And the estate represents the different tribes and clans that are present in the country. They're traditionally organized into lineages and kinship groups scattered throughout rural areas, who live and work in very diverse ways. Their distance and relative independence from the main centers of power make them difficult to govern, while their distinct customs give them a reputation as fearsome and unruly warriors. Nothing in here is bad, right? There's nothing in here that I would like describe as, you know, racist or you know, I guess I think there was comments saying it's slightly white supremacist, but again, I'm just reporting on what's been said, right? The fact that it needed to be responded to is wild in its own right. But bear in mind, Pavia linked a Wikipedia page. So we have this jackass. Please tell me you're not seriously basing your game on mechanics on Wikipedia. Jesus Christ. It's not the first time I've seen this guy be a bit of a twat. But Pavia responded to him as well, saying, "No, I'm basing these game concepts I've written on the social anthropology courses and readings I took while doing my degree, master's, and PhD in history. And even with that, may still be a matter for discussion as any academic topic. But for the people who might not have taken those readings and would be interested in expanding their knowledge about the matter, it's a good starting point," which were the exact words I've used. The literal fucking clap back. Beautiful. I had to include just for the beauty of that clapback. It was brilliant. And anyway, leaving that all there, that is the end of today's video on the Tinto talks for the week of whatever week this is. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, a like would be appreciated. Maybe comment on some of the things that you have heard in this video. And if you haven't already, it would be very blessed if you would subscribe to the channel. Again, like I said at the start, it's a win-win. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you guys on Wednesday for the next Tinto Talks. Should be a good one. Bye-bye.